Okay.
Oh, she's there.
Usually
Like,
sponsored twice, but it's usually like a long.
Are we good?
Whatever.
All right. I would like to call to order the, this is the budget hearing on May 12th. I keep wanting to say it's May 13th, but it's not. So I'd like to call to order the May 12th budget hearing. Pledge is over there. Will you lead us in the pledge, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, and presentation of the budget. Mr.
All right.
DeBosch.
Thank you, folks. Appreciate everyone being here for our 25-26 budget presentation. Just a brief agenda for our budget hearing tonight. We're going to talk about a state budget update and visit our 2025-2026 budget goals. We're going to visit our 2025-2026 budget goals, excuse me for a second, and talk about, we're going to compare the revenue and expenditures of our state budget, money coming in, money going out, highlight our use of reserves, how are our reserves doing year over year, and finally, compare the gap. Excuse me for a second, my apologies, but the presentation I had, it seems to be a different presentation than the one I have, so I just want to make sure I open the correct presentation. If you will just bear with me. There we go, that's the right one, because otherwise it doesn't match what's in your documents. Once again, my apologies. That's better. So, we're going to visit our 25-26 budget goals and take a look at the highlights from the state budget. Part of every complete budget or balanced budget for a school district is to compare the expenditures against the revenues. And so we're going to look at dollar in, dollar out and match our budget of $47,386,760. We're going to break down where our revenues come from and do a breakdown of our expenditures, and finally talk about our tax levy history. We'll also have a budget analysis over the last 5 to 6 years. How have our school district's budget grown year over year, and how has the tax levy increase been during those sequential years? Finally, we'll talk about what an approximate increase over the 7 different municipalities look like, our ballot propositions, our 4 board candidates running for 2 board seats, and we'll save some time for questions, and hopefully we can do this all in about 15 to 18 minutes to give our candidates some time to get up here and introduce themselves. So here we go. Part of our budget goals for this year, we knew that the state budgets were getting a little more leaner year over year. The COVID stimulus funding ended in September of 2024, and the state had made it very clear that moving forward, school districts can expect to see lesser than average increases year over year in terms of their state aid. Last year, there were several school districts across the state that got no increase in state aid. And by the time the state budget passed, they had essentially, through hold harmless, they got the same dollar amount of state aid that they received 2 years ago, so no increase. We were fortunate enough to get an increase last year. Many school districts were expecting no increase or a minimal increase, and that's exactly how things played out across the state. So we wanted to be very mindful, and we wanted to be very careful as folks retired. We wanted to really ask ourselves the question, could we save some funds by not staffing those positions while maintaining programming? With that being small class sizes at the elementary school and elective offerings or a variety of offerings at the secondary school. We also wanted to protect our long-term availability of district reserves. In a handful of slides, I'm going to highlight where our district reserves are and how much we use this year, how much we're looking to use next year. And finally, at the end of each year, we hope to save some money so that we can take some of that money and apply them to the bus purchase reserves. So year over year, we can continue to upgrade our fleet and also allocate some money to capital reserves so that every 5 or so years, we go out and do a capital project to constantly update and upgrade our infrastructure and build for the future. So The state budget passed through. This was one of the later state budgets that's passed in recent years. Based on the governor's proposal in January, the governor had proposed a minimum 2% increase for all school districts across the state, and that's where it landed for Phelps-Clifton Springs. What does that 2% increase look like? It looks like an additional $414,353 for our school district in terms of state aid. Another piece of the state budget highlight was that the BOCE's salary aid on instructional salaries for more than a decade or even 2 decades, that number has been stuck at $30,000. There's been a tremendous amount of advocacy for years to raise that dollar amount, and it's finally raised to $40,000 this year, $50,000 next year, and $60,000 the year after. So the BOCE's aid we receive back as school districts on instructional salaries is going from 30 to 40, and then to 50, and then to 60. The retiree earnings cap for folks that can come back and work, they have to maintain salary up to $35,000 in certain sectors. That cap has been extended so they can go over the cap for an additional 2 years. But the state is making it very clear that 2 years from now, that is going to sunset and the retiree cap is going to be back in full effect. A smartphone ban, or from bell-to-bell schedule, or distraction-free schools, as the governor called it. The governor has allocated a chunk of money towards distraction-free schools. We're yet to see what that's going to look like. They haven't sent out too much documentation regarding that, but we're just kind of sitting back and seeing how this plays out. And then finally, a 2-year extension to implementation of zero-emission buses. The governor had already proposed an initial 2-year extension, and now they have applied another 2 years. So essentially, it's a 4-year extension. Mind you, when this law came out, it said 2027 was the first year you can only purchase an electric bus. So that had a 2-year extension, and now it's got another 2-year extension. So it's almost been kicked back to 2031. Which becomes the first time that you have to purchase an EV bus for the school district. So it seems like that timeline is just getting pushed farther and farther back. So I think it's wise for the districts who are still sticking with their diesel buses to kind of just sit back and see how this plays out in the future. All right, so we talked about dollar in, dollar out. What does a balanced school budget look like? We've got expenditures on the left-hand side of the chart, and we've got revenue on the right-hand side of the chart. Every expenditure by law has to be broken down into 3 different categories: administrative, program, and capital. Administrative, across several, if not all school districts, is always the smallest portion of a school budget, followed by capital, and then comes the largest portion of a school budget, which is program, teaching and learning, which is what we're here for. So the administrative is encompassed of legal fees, insurance, administrator salaries, but also BOCE's administrative charges for maintaining internet, phone service, and so on and so forth. So all those fall under the administrative. Program, once again, teaching and learning, and capital is our facilities and maintenance department across campus. So there's the breakdown of administrative, program, and capital. On the right-hand side is the money we bring in, our revenue. The largest portion of our revenue comes from state aid. 61.5% in 25-26 will be from state aid. Now, you could go across the state and you could go to some very affluent school districts where state aid is 10% of a school district's budget, and their real property taxes or their tax levy make up 70 to 80%. That's not the case at Phelps-Clifton Springs. A rural school like ourselves is highly dependent on state aid, and so that can make or break school district budgets year over year. The second biggest part is our real property taxes or our tax levy. And then comes the last 2. How much we borrow from the savings account to offset our school budget, aka our reserves, and then finally, other sources of revenue. We've got some payments in lieu of taxes or pilot agreements like the Sulphur Creek Solar Farm or Finger Lakes Railroad. And we also have a healthy portion of our facility we rent out to BOCES, so that BOCES rent and capital expenses make up the other portion of our school budget, of our revenue, hence the 4 categories right there. But once again, in the left column and the right column, both numbers tie out to $47,386,760. So we talked about the proposed revenue year over year. The first one is the state aid. Once again, increase of $414,353. What does that represent? That represents the 2% increase that the governor's budget, the governor's proposal and the state budget that passed, that's what the 2% increase represents. Real property taxes, second one in line, there's an increase year over year of $316,882. What does that represent? That represents a 2% tax levy increase year over year. Reserves and debt service, we're looking to borrow an additional $69,787 from our reserves. In a couple slides, you'll notice this year we borrowed $740,000 approximately. Next year we're borrowing just north of $800,000, and that's the $69,000 additional we're taking from our savings to close the school district budget. And then finally, other, this is the first time in a very long time the other part of the budget is going up by nearly $442,000. And that is because our 10-year BOCES lease has been renegotiated. This has been 2 years in the making. Later tonight, the board will be approving that BOCES lease for the next 10 years, and that is generating an additional $440,000 per year over the next 10 years, or roughly $4.42 million. And this could not have come at a better time because, once again, the state aid we received is $414,000. When you look at past years, it's been well north of $1 million. 2 or 3 years ago, it was $3.3 million. So that's how much leaner the state budgets have gotten, especially directed towards school aid. So, to highlight our reserves, in 24-25, we borrowed $740,000 from our reserves. As of March 31st, what's the condition of our reserves? Our total reserves add up to approximately $10.6 million. We have a very healthy reserve. Somewhere to the tune of 20% of our school year's operating budget we have in reserves. Now that is a very healthy number to have because of 2 reasons. Every school district is measured by a fiscal stress monitoring system through the Office of the State Comptroller. For years now, the State Comptroller has given Phelps-Clifton Springs no stress, which means you are in a healthy financial position. Secondly, when we go out to borrow money, the first thing the Moody's rating agency will do is look at our credit rating. A key piece of our credit rating is, do we pay our bills on time, and what is our debt to income ratio? Our reserves play a massive role in that. And what does that turn into? When we borrow money for capital projects, the people that bid through the Dormitory Authority of the State of New York, or something called DASNY, the folks that bid or offer an interest rate when we want to borrow money give us a significantly lower interest rate because of our A+ credit rating and the health of our reserves. So once again, we're looking to go from $740,000 this year to $809,787, that additional $69,000 we mentioned on the previous slide. So that right there is essentially money coming in. We talked about revenue. Over the next 3 slides, we're going to break down administrative, program, and capital, but I'm going to move through these a little quicker. In administrative, the highlight of administrative, by the way, I want to mention, over the next 3 slides, you're going to see employee benefits on every slide, because there has to be a portion of the administrative budget. Remember, there are administrators in the administrative budget. There are teachers, teaching assistants, and everybody else you can think of in the program portion of the budget. And then there's our facilities department in the capital portion of the budget. So you're going to see employee benefits on the next 3 screens. Together, those benefits add up to nearly $675,000. I just told you state aid only gave us $414,000. Our employee benefits itself this year are going to amount to a $675,000 increase. So, highlights of the administrative portion of the budget. We were able to save money in 2 different areas. First, our public relations officer. We used to have the public relations officer position through BOCES, but since we lost our public relations officer, we've actually hired a public relations officer in-house, and we were still able to save money because the BOCES charge was significant for a public relations officer. They added on several other administrative costs that, looking back on it, we have somebody in-house, and it's been a great transition so far. The second area we're saving money in this administrative portion of the budget is in curriculum, supervision, research, and planning. BOCES sends us a request for services every year. our Director of Curriculum and Instruction, our Director of Special Education, our Director of Instructional Technology sit down and make a list of itinerant BOCE staff that need to be brought in to support some of our teachers or support some of our departments. That request year over year has gone down once again, saving us about $30,000. So where has money increased? Legal, insurance. Insurance was probably the biggest hit, a 17% increase in insurance to cover our property loss or property damage or casualty, you name it. Across the board, school districts are seeing this. And finally, you've got benefits or the administrative portion of benefits. Program. The biggest increase in program typically year over year will always be salaries. The salaries we're looking at a $302,000 increase for teaching of regular school. We're also looking at a roughly $80,000 increase for our pupil support office staff, including health services. Those two right there, that makes up $380,000 or just north of $380,000 just in salary increases. Where are we saving some funds? We're saving some funds in our program for students with disabilities. Whether it's, and this has been through either students graduating from a program, graduating from high school, or a change in program for students, year over year, we were able to save about $90,000. Transportation. Bus driver salaries have become something incredibly competitive across the region, and we are determined to not only hire but also retain our bus drivers, and quite frankly, we cannot afford to lose any more bus drivers. So there's an increase in transportation salaries of $138,000. And then finally, that $675,000 portion of health benefits we talked about, 561, the largest portion is right there under program. Once again, always the largest part of a school district budget. Lastly, capital, facilities, and maintenance of plant. Once again, we're talking about salaries for our facilities and maintenance folks, but included in capital is also utilities. One of the biggest utilities we anticipate going up, just based on the bills we've started to see from NYSEG, is our electricity bills. So that $96,000 does not just correlate to salaries, it's salaries and utilities that are playing a huge role in that operation and maintenance of plant portion of the budget going up. Employee benefits as well, their share. And then finally, no increase in debt service in terms of what we owe as a result of past capital projects. So those three slides make up the expenditure portion of the school budget. So once again, when we look at our tax levy history, we are asking the community to come out and vote on a 2% tax levy increase. Over the last 10 years, the tax levy increase that we have asked the community for represents the blue line. The tax cap formula each year represents the red line. This year, our tax cap formula gives us the possibility of going out and asking for a 5.15% increase pending a 50% voter approval. Historically, this district, especially over the last 10 years, has gone out well below the tax cap. We are no different this year. We're asking for, once again, a 2% increase, which is less than half. As we compare our school district budget to budgets from the last 5 to 6 years, if you look in the center of that table, you'll notice in 22-23, our budget increased by $2.3 million year over year. 23-24, 3.8 million roughly. When I talked about when times were good, when COVID funding was across the board, when the state had lost the battle for fully funding foundation aid and finally had to fund underfunded districts like Phelps-Clifton Springs, the state aid increases we were getting were significant and really helped us maintain our programming so that once the federal stimulus funds had gone, we did not have to let teachers go, or we did not have to let people go that we hired over the last 5 years. But now those state budgets are drying up, they're a little leaner. This year, the budget-to-budget increase is $1.243 million. $419,000 of that is just the BOCES lease. So if you think about it, the budgets are starting to look, I'm going to compare them to about 2021. When I just do a comparison to the last 5 to 6 years, it looks more like where the budgets were during 2021 school year. That's about the closest comparison I can find. Across 7 municipalities, there are some municipalities last year that went through reassessment. Some did not. So this is, once again, blended. Using 2024 assessments for a $100,000 home on assessed value, what does the 2% tax levy increase look like? Folks without STAR can see an approximate increase of $49.40. With STAR, $36.08. And with enhanced STAR, $12.22. Once again, that's based on a $100,000 assessed value, and that's based on the 2024 assessment, because the 2025 assessment won't be released until this summer. Lastly, what's the community voting on May 20th? The 4 propositions: to adopt the annual budget for Phelps-Clifton Springs, to elect 2 members to the Board of Education, to authorize our bus purchases in the amount of $888,237. We've got a total of 5 buses and 1 sport utility vehicle that we're purchasing. Buses, diesel, sport utility vehicle, gasoline. I always like to emphasize that when I talk about our bus proposition. And then finally, to approve the library propositions for the 2 libraries, the Phelps and the Clifton Springs Library, in the amount of totaling $194,000. The 4 folks that are running for board seats: Amanda Frost, Nicholas Hargarther, Lindsay Marino, and Jackie Gallahan Blake. I hope I pronounced those names correctly. If I didn't, I apologize. But before we ask those 4 folks to come up and introduce themselves, I just wanted to see if any members of this audience have any questions about the school district budget, so that you're better informed to vote on May 20th. It's 6:20. I tried to keep it to 20 minutes, leaving 10 minutes for the 4 folks to come up. I think I did
15.
okay.
You said 15.
I did say 15.
14 to 18.
It was that oops with the previous presentation. I apologize. I lost a couple minutes in that process. Would any folks like to ask questions? This is one of the rare times you actually do get to ask questions, unlike the first 3 budget workshops where it's the board members asking questions. So if you have one, please ask. If no one has any questions, the last thing I would say, I would encourage every member of the community, please come out and vote on May 20th. Thank you, folks.
Thank you, Carl.
Ms. Carl.
Thank you, Carl. All right, so those of you who would like to come introduce yourselves, we'll go in order. Amanda? We don't have a
Where's the podium?
podium? Oh, it's over
Podium's
there.
right there.
Oh, I'm blind, sorry.
Hi, I'm Amanda Frost. I clearly didn't think this through when having to speak in front of everyone. I was born and raised in Clifton Springs. I took a brief time away when I attended SUNY Geneseo, and when my husband was in the military, we were stationed at West Point. We then moved back home after we had Lane, my son Lane, and I have a daughter, Hartley. We wanted to be close to family, and now I live 3 miles from my parents' house. My mom is Lisa Cornbaugh. She ran the bus garage for forever, and you just can't get rid of her at the bus garage. She's working so hard, and I've seen over the years everything that the bus drivers have gone through, and I will fight till their death, because I love them and they deserve so much. So currently I work for the New York State Office for People with Developmental Disabilities. I am an environmental modification supervisor. So my team of social workers and I help to approve the individuals that are currently in the HCBS waiver to get environmental modifications, and also vehicle modifications, and we're dipping our toes into the ATEC world. So I am well versed on state budgets and all that fun stuff. We just passed ours, so I'll get paid. Straight. I would like to be a part of the board because I am a lifelong learner. I love to learn new things, and there's always people in the community that are criticize, and I like to be out there asking questions and getting to know the reasons why they're asking these questions. And there's such a diverse type of family out here in Clifton Springs, and I would just want to be that ear for them to talk to and the voice to bring it to the board. So, yeah, thank you for having me.
Thank you, Amanda.
Thanks, Amanda.
Nicholas?
I over-prepared. Everybody knows, some of you might know me, some of you might not, but Nick Hargarther. I'm a father in the district. I have 5 kids. I talk a lot, so I'm going to make sure that I read my notes so that we don't go over time, because I understand that time is precious. I'm not just standing here as a candidate for the Board of Education, but also who believes in power of learning, right? So I give back to the community. I give back to the community as I sign up to be a coach, a substitute. I reach out, we do STEM programs, we do community innovation outreach programs to help improve education for left and right brain students. I don't want to get into that because I'll start talking all day. But some kids have a little bit different understanding of what education is. So learning with them, fighting for them, and having a voice for them is extremely important to me. As a coach and a substitute and an engineer, a community member, I always turn my experiences into opportunities. Those opportunities are extremely important because every time we go through something, we learn from those opportunities and make a difference however we can, right? The biggest thing on here is talking about continuous growth. Continuous growth, to me, doesn't come from knowing everything or working on everything or changing it all up. It comes from continuously working together as a team. So the platform of what we do, we're building confidence, building up young ones to help come here and sit through board meetings and talk about budgets, right? Those are extremely important. Those are opportunities that happens to be that I'm sitting here, but I want to encourage young kids to come up and try to do this stuff, to take a little bit there, right? They were asking me about what the board meeting actually is. Wish more showed up because that would have been great, right? So I believe in confidence, resilience, and belonging for kids, right? So working with them have given me a completely new aspect and perspective of how our education system should work, and how we work together with teachers and the experiences that they go through. There's nothing more frightening than standing up in front of a bunch of kids to try to teach them something that they really don't want to learn that day. Understanding those aspects allow me to step back and come up with outside the box thinking to make sure that we can drive a smarter, more fun-filled environment that kids can actually learn and do that for. So me standing up here for the Board of Education, somebody asked me to. So I said, why not? It's another challenge to do. And I tell the kids, right, win or lose, you come out and do your best. And if they would have told me I had these people to go up against, I probably would have hid under the podium and not come up here. So there's some awesome candidates running and stuff like that. So make sure you come out and vote on May 20th. If anybody has any questions for me, trust me, I have no problem talking later. So thank you.
Thank you, Nick.
Thanks, Nick.
Lindsay?
Hi. So I know most of you here, but my name is Lindsay Marino, and I'm running for re-election to the Midlakes School Board. As a lifelong Ontario County resident and a parent of 3 kids in the district, 1 in 6th grade, 2 in 10th, I care about the success of our schools, I care about our educators, and most importantly, I care about our students, our kids. The past 4 years, I've had the honor of working with the school board and to improve our district. So I bring to this 25 years as a pediatric registered nurse. I work in the emergency room where I've worked for the last 17 at Golisano. And I think that mostly has taught me how to stay really calm under pressure, solve problems, focus with clarity, and just, I don't have any problem advocating for the well-being of children. I kind of consider myself an expert in their physical well-being. Not their mental health, but their physical. So I'm seeking re-election because I think that we've made a lot of practical progress over the last 4 years, and I would like to be able to see that through, kind of the goals we've set in our initiatives, and just be part of seeing all of that through. I think my focus is on supporting our teachers, listening to our families in the community, and then making smart, sustainable decisions that strengthen Midlakes. So I would appreciate your vote in re-election on the 20th. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Jackie?
Ooh, okay. Hello, I'm Jackie Blake. My face is already bright red up here. Okay. Whew. Not my cup of tea. My husband and I own and operate an outfitting business out west, and I'm a stay-at-home mom of 3, Barrett, who's 10, Cash, 9, and Tate, who is 5. According to my 5-year-old, who just filled out his Mother's Day little questionnaire in school, he said that I don't do anything. So that was reassuring. And then I'm a really bad jumper, so to work on that. I'm a Midlakes 2001 graduate, and this is where I chose to raise my family and give back to the community. When my youngest went to school this year, I knew that I wanted to get more involved. So I started volunteering in Cash's classroom and reading with the kids. I believe that I would be a good asset to the board. I approach every decision with an open mind, and I'm not here with just one agenda. The goal that I have in mind is that for all children to thrive and be successful. In conclusion, I'd like to say thank you to the entire board and the staff. Without your tireless service, the district would not be where it is today. And I know that public service is not an easy job, and that exactly is why that I would be honored to serve on the board. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. I just adjourned.
Yep.
All right. Public hearing is adjourned.
Thank you.